Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Masechtas Chagigah daf Chaf. We're going to begin about 10 lines from the top of Chaf Amud Aleph. Omer Rav Yochanan ben Elazar. So he says the following: Nafla miafarto. Let's say it fell off his shirt. Himenu. Omer chaveru tanoli. Give it to me. Give me this sudar, this shirt or this kerchief. But Nastalo, so the person was nice and he got it for him. So unfortunately, Tameya, this person becomes Tameh. Why? Says Rashi, V'afilu zeh tahar. Even if the person who had this shirt was tahar, nonetheless he becomes Tameh by picking up this guy's shirt. And coming Mafarish Taima, we're going to see the reason why later on, because Chazaka in Adam Mishamar Ma Shibiyad Chavero. A person does not guard which is in someone else's hands. Lafikach hu lo shamra biad chavero. Therefore, he did not guard that which is in his friend's hand. Begam zeh shenastalo lo hayachshash l'shamra. We say that the item which he's holding was not guarded. Demeimar Omer, a person will say, Kivan she Omer le tenuli. Since this person said, "Give me this kerchief or shirt," vu enu yodeh im tami ani im tahar. This person had no idea whether or not I was tahar tameh, l'chashla taharaso. So he was not very concerned regarding this beged, if it was pure or not. V'yeshkan hesach hadas, and therefore there's this element of hesach hadas, of diversion of one's thoughts, and therefore u'machmirin b'taharos havi hesach hadas tuma. So therefore we end up saying the beged takes upon itself the status of tuma, and that is the din of this person. In this case, becomes tameh. Omer Rav Yonasan ben Amram, nis chalfo kelim shel Shabbos b'kelim shel chol. Let's say a person mixed up his weekday garments, Shabbos garments, kelim shel chol, v'lovshan nitvu, and he puts them on. We say that also the beged in this case becomes tameh. Why? Says Rashi, because we thought that hashdis virle mishmar hadavar becheska shehu davar zeh the nimsa shedavar acher enu shomer. If let's say you're guarding it, thinking it's a particular item A, but it really turns out to be something else, so that's not considered to be like a proper shmira. So we're going to see perhaps that's not the reason, but at least in the Havamina we're going to think that that's why. Fine. So now we have a third thought. Rav Elazar bar Tzadok, Maaseh, he says over the story b'shtei nashim, with two women, chaverais, who are careful with the dinim of tum and tahara, shenis chalful hen kilenim b'beis hamerchatz. I'm not sure how often this happens. A person goes to a bathhouse and they end up switching clothes. They end up wearing each person's garment. Now they're both very, very strict in the dinim of tum and tahara, so maybe we think that doesn't matter. They went to Rabbi Akiva and he said these garments are tameh, and they are tameh. So this Rabbi Oishia asked a question. Let's say a person sticks his hand into a basket, and his das is for bread, and it turns out also pas iron said he has barley. Hachinami denitmus. Are we also going to say the bread is tameh? It's hard to understand all these different cases. You switch garments, or you switched someone else's garment, but everyone's strict anyway, so what's the whole problem? If you want to say, yeah, it's true. If you have kavana for wheat bread, and then you end up taking barley bread, it's also a mile we're going to say it's tameh basanya. Person has a barrel and he thinks this is going to be wine. It remains pure. So we say that even if a person makes this little confusion, that's not going to affect anything. So how can we say over by the other cases that it's a problem? So Gemara says one second, you gotta look at the seifa of that case. It says you're not allowed to eat it. So even though it's true that it's tahar l'matame, that this oil is in fact not tameh, but you're not allowed to eat it. So the question is, am I? It's actually almost like a stira. What do you mean? if it's not tameh, which means apparently you didn't do anything wrong, nothing bad happened, so why can't you eat it? So Rabbi Yomi says this is the reason why over there. But Omer, we're talking about a situation where a person says, Shemaseha midavar hamatama, that I'm going to guard this only from something that will make it tameh, v'lo midavar hapoisla, but not something which will passel it. So again, the difference is if, for example, you have an adam, a person. So a person could become an av hatoma. You can also become a rishon latoma. Now the difference is that can this person, is he tameh, which means not only is he pure, but he has the capacity to make something else impure, or posel, that he becomes impure, but he doesn't have the capacity to transfer that impurity onto someone else. So it's possible that you guarded it from a higher level of tumah to make sure that it's something that won't make anything else tameh. If it becomes tameh, that's a higher level of tumah. That not only does it become tameh, but it can also transfer tumah. That is the only thing I guarded it for. But I didn't guard it on the level of making sure that it's not poisel. So it's just almost like a partial guarding. So therefore, because of that, it's not tameh. It's not capable of making something else tameh because you guarded it for that. But you can't eat it because it is considered to be posel. It's still impure, but it doesn't have the capacity to passel to something else. So 1 second. Mi'ika and the tirusal palga, is there half watching? And yes, there is. So we see actually this is the case in the following situation. A person sticks his hand to a basket, and his basket is on his shoulders, and he has this magrefa on the sal, says Rashi. So the sal is shel te'enim. He has a basket of figs, and it's on his shoulder, and he has a kli barzilhu. He has this metal kli also in it, right? Shigarfin bo efer hakira, that basically you shovel ashes from an oven with it. Gam mavdilin boy te'enim hamuvdakois zubazu. It's also some type of vessel, some type of utensil that it separates these figs that are very, very tight and attached to one another, so you can break those figs apart. So that is what a magrefa is. It could be for sweeping ovens. It could be for, again, helping your figs. Probably you don't want to use the same thing for both. Anyway, both of these things are in the basket. Vaibalibo al asal. You only have das to make sure that the basket is good. So you don't have any das about making sure that the scraper, if you want to call it that, inside is tahar. So it's sal tahar v'hamagrefa tameh. Tameya. We say that the scraper thing is tameya. Hasal tahar. What do you mean the basket is tahar? Titma hamagrefa. Why don't we say, won't it make the basket tameh? The scraper, right? Hamagrefa lasal. That if the basket is tahar, okay, the basket is tahar, but this kli, if this kli is tameh, it's going to be matama the basket, this other kli. Whereas no, ain't kli matama kli. A kli cannot make another kli tameh. Doesn't work like that. We know that an avatoma can make a keli into a rishon latoma, but a rishon cannot, which is a kli, cannot make another kli into a sheni latoma. It can only make oichan mamashkim, which are the figs. Could be a problem. So l'tam masha basal. So that's the question. Maybe it should be l'tam of the food. So Amar Ravina no. But oimer shemarti medavar shematamo v'lo medavar hapoisloi. So he said no. I had das that it should guard from having the capacity of doing anything which could be matama, but not anything that could passel. So therefore, that's his kavana. So mikol makom kasha. Again, at the end of the day, we still have a question. What's the question? So says Rashi, the question is, why did we say that if you have this situation where you have this barrel, which you thought was wine, was really oil, you can't eat it? Why can't you eat the oil if it's not tameh? So mikol makom kasha. But furthermore, he asked another question. Masa be'isha achas. There's a story of the woman Shibaso Rabbi Shmuel, she came to Rabbi Shmuel, the Amrlo, and she said to him, Rabbi, Begin zeh oragtiv b'tahara. This garment was woven in purity. V'lohei belibi l'shomer b'tahara. But my das was not to guard it in purity. Says Rashi, oragtiv b'tahara. Yodat ani, I know. Shemisha sheneherag bo gimel al gimel etzba'ois. When it was 3 by 3 fingers, which is the smallest amount that it has some utility to be matama, sheniru l'tuma l'nogu b'tuma. I know nothing tummy touched it. But it wasn't really in my das to guard it, but I know for a fact there was nothing that touched it which was tummy. And while investigating and asking her questions, Shahayu Rabbi Shmuel Boidka Amulo Rabbi, she said, Nida Mashcha mi bechevel. There was actually a Nida that pulled the rope with me. So Rabbi Shmuel Kama Gedolim Diri Chachamim. Shayi Armin Beliebel L'Shamro Tahar Ein Beliebel L'Shamro Tameh. Now I understand when the Chachamim made this statement that if a person was not guarding it, that it becomes tameh. Because even though you would maybe think, oh yeah, nothing happened, it never became tameh, the truth is, if you're not a shimer over it, there's a chance, if you really think about it, oh yeah, it's true, there was a nida, there was this. So if you don't properly guard it, there's hesach hadas on that item, and through that hesach hadas, that's going to be a problem, it becomes tameh. So that's why it's that they came up with this. So sometimes you can say, well, why the Chachamim coming up with all these different chumras? There's a logic and a method to understand the reason behind this. Shuv ma'aseh b'isha achas. There's another story. Shabasa lefnei Rabbi Shmuel. Amrlo Rabbi, mapazu aragtiha b'tahara. This cloth, again, I sewed in purity. However, lo hayibali b'l'shaymer. But I didn't really keep in mind. I wasn't thinking about guarding it. Mitach b'diko shahay Rabbi Shmuel b'idka amrlo. She said to him, you know what, Rabbi, Nima nifsakali, there was a thread that broke, vikashartiha b'peh, but it went, I put it into my mouth. And of course, once you put it into your mouth, so therefore it becomes, this is liquid, and this liquid makes it royal kabel tuma. And therefore, all of a sudden, now it becomes potentially problematic. So again, Rabbi Shmuel, Kama Gedolim Divrei Chachamim, Sha'armin Beliboy L'Shamro Tahar, and Belibo L'Shamro Tameh. Now, Bishlam Rabbi Elazar, fine. Now, Bishlam Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik. I can understand the story of Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik, which, as we recall, was the story of two women that they, even though they were chaveros, they were makbid to be doing everything but tahara, and their garments got switched up in the Beis Merchatz. So he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's tameh." So that element of hesach hadas, I understand. That kol achas v'achas omeres, every woman will say, "Chaverti eishas ama aretz." Maybe this other woman really is not so particular. Masaycha daita mimeni mina, and therefore she had hesach hadas. She didn't think that this was something which was properly guarded, and therefore for that it makes sense. Rav Yonasan ben Amram Nami, when it came to Rav Yonasan ben Amram, which is the story of having Shabbos clothes instead of the weekday clothes, vice versa, that it's tamei kivan de kelim de Shabbos avidluhu shimer tvei. Since you have a higher level of shmira on your Shabbos clothes, masach daiti minayu. So therefore, again, you had hesach hadas, the fact that you ended up choosing different garments. El Rav Yonasan ben Elazar, when it came to the story, the first one that we began this daf with, that a person's shirt fell off and you ask your friend to pick it up and all of a sudden it's tamei. So nevertheless, shimer biyadi dechavre. Why don't we say that it was protected and guarded in your friend's hands? So on this, a person does not guard that which is in someone else's hands. You guard that which is in front of you, but not which is in someone else's hands. So before we continue the next line, so mashkin, just like from a zav, is an avatuma. So if it touches a sheni, a liquid, it becomes a rishon and can make a kli tameh as well. Although normally a rishon can't make a kli tameh. Okay, so correct the Gemara Velos, is that true that a person does not guard something which is not in your own hands, but in the friends of your friend? As we continue to Chafam and Beis, Lasanya, but we learn the following: Hari Shahayu Chamarav ufoalav tu'unin taharos. Let's say you have these donkey drivers or workers, and Rashi says these are amharatzim. They're not particular in guarding things, and they're tu'unin taharos. They're carrying pure items. It could go in yayin b'chavyos. Let's say they have wine in barrels, in earthenware barrels. Ve'hein enim noigin b'soichan. They don't touch the inside. Klicheres en matama begabo. You cannot be an earthenware keli tame from touching the outside. So we're not concerned about the amarts touching the outside. The problem is if he touches the inside. So the din is as follows. Afal pi shehiflig mehen yotzim mil. Even if, let's say, you are the guardian of this to make sure it remains tahar, even if you separate more than a mil into a decent distance from him, which is about an 18-minute walk, taharosav taharos. Everything remains tahar. It's not a problem. We're not chayshish that maybe he touched the inside, because after all, he doesn't know how long. He didn't say, oh, by the way, I'm going for a mil, I'm coming back. Then he'll say, oh, okay, so maybe I can, in the meantime, touch the inside of this wine. So because he has no idea when you're coming back, which is almost the idea of a yoytz v'nichnas, you don't know when the person's coming back, so therefore he's going to be more particular. The im omelahen, if you say, l'chu v'ani avo yacharechem, you go and I'll catch up to you, kivan shenis almo einav mehen. As soon as his eyes can't see you, taharasav tameis, then that which is pure becomes impure, because we can assume, since he knows definitively that you're not going to be there for a certain amount of time, so he has nothing to worry about, and he's going to end up touching it, and it becomes tamei. Now, ma'ishna reisha, ma'ishna seifa. Why do we make a distinction between the first part and the second? So, Rabbi Yitzchak kedafka reisha b'matar chamara v'fualav lakach. Here, you actually made the workers pure. You made sure that they were 100% tahar. Says Rashi, Olam in adam shamer mashabiyad chavero. The truth is, it's true that a person does not guard that which is in someone else's hands. Vahani ein srichin shimur. But these people really don't need shimur. This doesn't mean shimur. Dinami nagu, because the truth is, even if they did touch it, they actually, we made sure that these people were 100% tahar. So therefore, that's the reason why we don't have to worry about it. So one second. If that's true that we made sure that these amaratzim, these donkey drivers and these workers, were immersed in a mikvah in order to become purified, to be able to not have to worry about them touching the inside of this wine, so how can we say in the seifa, if you left and they know that you left, that all the wine becomes tameh? Why? They're tahar. So our answer is ein am haaretz makmid al maga chavero, because am haaretz is not makmid on the touch of his friend. Now it's very possible that even though they became tameh, but in the absence of you watching them, they could easily become tameh, and therefore matama other things as well. Ihachi reishin nami. So why aren't we concerned about the reish as well? Bebolohem derech aklasoin. It's talking about where you went like in an angle. Now, he could always come at any time. And since he can come at any time, they're going to be concerned. It says Rashi, Kishiyachal Avoy Lehem Pitoim, Derech Alkasain, you can come like in some shortcut, Hilchach, so they're not going to touch the wine. Ihachi seifanami, shouldn't they be concerned there? No. Since you said, I'm going to come and catch up to you, misrach sarcha detaihu. So they basically, their mind is at ease, and it's very possible that they may end up touching someone, and then afterwards touching it and making it tameh. All right, let's see a couple questions. Question 2. Nafla ma'afarto. So we said, in the event that a person touches this shirt, and then you ask your friend to newly, and he gives it, so we say that that's tameh. So the question is, ma'atam. What's the reason for that? So we said, let's see how he writes it here. It's tameh. Chazaka in adam mashamer mashi b'yad chaveroi. Because a person does not guard that which is in his friend's hands, which is actually what we saw in the Rashi before, which is actually the maskana. To be nashim chaveros sheschalfu behen kalehen bebeis hamerchatz. So they switch their garments in the beis hamerchatz. So again, what is the din? Are they tamei? What's the din of their garments, etc.? So we said also in that case, it is tameh, and the reason is kol achas ve'achas omeres chaverti eshes amaretz umaisach daita mina. It's possible that each of these women are amaratzim, and therefore there was hesach hadas involved in this, and therefore the din it is tameh. Let me see where it says it down here to the very bottom of the daf. Kol achas ve'achas omeres chaverti eshes amaretz umaisach daita mina. Fine. Question 3 we didn't do yet. TA 10. Be'er maha machlokas im eser milos. We didn't do that yet. TB. Harishay chamara b'fualav tu'unin taharos. So they're carrying these pure items. Taharasa of taharos. Madu hutzrochu b'gemara loimer de b'taher chamara b'fualav kach. Why did the Gemara have to end up saying that we're talking about a situation where you made sure that these guys were tahar? It says the imokain lo haya tarasav taharos. We would not say that it's tahar shechazaka and adam mishamer mashim yad chavero, because we have the principle that whatever is in a person's hand, someone else's hands, so we say that a person is not really guarding it, and therefore because of that, it has to be that they actually were tahar. So let me just write this again. This is Reisha b'matahir chamor b'fualav lekach. Because otherwise, again, we would maybe say, well, who says that they're tahar because it was in someone else's hands? So that in itself, you're not able to be a shimer on something which is in someone else's hands, which was the proof to that, and which is why we also said that if a person dropped the shirt and picked it up, that is the reason why it's tameh. Hanulach ein dorshin, hanulach ein dorshin, hanulach ein dorshin. We now continue with the third and final parak in this Masechta, which is primarily tumas and taharos. Chaymer b'kaidish mibetruma. So in certain ways, kaidish, as we already established a couple, as we saw already, have certain stringencies over the dinim of truma. So we're going to have a long list. Let's see the whole Mishnah, and we'll stop at the end of the Mishnah, which is going to be the top of the next Amud. So first of all, shemat bilin kalim b'toch kalim, truma of a little kodesh. When it comes to kodesh, a person cannot immerse one vessel inside the other. That will not work. Gemara is going to explain the reason. However, when it comes to truma, you could immerse one kli into another, which is actually going to be part of question 3. So let me just see that now while we're here. It says, "It obeys milus b'kodesh mibetruma also chachamim mishum chashash chatzitza b'tfila." Now we're concerned about chatzitza. One is, again, you cannot be toivel a kli b'toich kli. That's going to be one answer to this question. There's an issue that the inside one may be touching the outer one, and because they're pressed, the water will not go in between. That is one difference. Weiter, achrayim v'toich ubeis hatzvita b'truma of Allah b'kodesh. So what is this referring to? The outside, inside, the handle are all considered to be separate when it comes to truma, but not by kodesh. Says Rashi, kol tashmish v'tashmish shabo choshev kli b'fnei atzmo leinin truma. Each of them are considered to be separate, even though it's the same kli. She'im nitmazeh, if let's say you touch one part of this kli, lo nitmazeh, it doesn't make the other one tameh. But tumas d'Rabbanan kaimer. This is obviously referring to a tuma d'Rabbanan. So when it comes to a tuma d'Rabbanan, when it comes to dinim of truma, if let's say the handle becomes tameh, it's not matama the inside of the kli. But not when it comes to kodesh, we're strict. We say if you touches one, the whole thing becomes tameh. Weiter, big de oichle truma medresa kodesh, which we had this before, that when it comes to a tahar person's clothes regarding truma, it's still considered to be the status of tumas medrus to kodesh, that maybe ishta nida, his wife, sat on it, and it's tumas it's tameh medrus. Look, midas a kodesh, midas a truma. Shiba kodesh, when it comes to kodesh, matir, you have to untie it, umenagiv, and then dry it out, umatbil, immerse it, v'yachakach kosher. Then you could tie it back. which is going to be the second answer because of the din of, says Rashi, b'chatzitzas tvilos of midas hatruma. So we're more strict with truma kosher. You can let it remain tied. V'achach will immerse it in there. So this is the second situation, not just kli b'tal kli, but also over here, whether you actually have to untie the item, because when something is tied, then the water is not going to be able to get inside. So the question is, are we strict about that? So when it comes to kodesh, we're strict, not by truma. Okay, weiter. Kalim hanigmorim. When it comes to kalim, which are, so let's actually say this Rashi. Menagav, you have to dry it off. Imlachu, if it's wet. Menagvoy tchila, you have to dry it first. Then immerse it. The whole zeh mishum the damel chatzitzahu. That it's a concern of chatzitza. But truma, Rashi says, im ratzel kaisher. If you want, you could tie it. V'yachach matbil. It doesn't have to be untied. Okay. Weiter in the Mishnah. Kalim hanigmarim, a kli which was just completed, but tahara with purity, says Rashi. Shenizahir bahen, you were careful. Mishibo samach gamran, that right before you completed it, sharuin l'kabel tuma. So the din is when it comes to a kli, while you're making it, it's not royal l'kabel tuma. You actually have to have the machshav. It has to be completed, a completed vessel. So if right before you finished it, you were regarding it and you made sure, let's say an Amma Arts did not spit anywhere near the kli, and the issue is it could, let's say for example, it's wet when the kli was completed, therefore it can become tameh. It's royal l'kabel tuma. So when it comes to Kalim Nigmorim but Tahara, Srich and Tvil Kodesh. They say, you know what, it doesn't matter. You still have to immerse it into a mikvah. The Gemara is going to explain why. If 100% you know that it never came in contact with any liquid or of an amaretz, of a truma. Because of this certainty, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to immerse it in order to use it for truma. Hakli, Mesarif Masha B'Seichel Kodesh of a truma. When it comes to a kli, it combines and joins together what is within it regarding kodesh, not by truma. Says Rashi, a person has a lot of different pieces, but kli echad in one vessel. The naga tami be'echem, it touches one of the pieces of food. Hakli mitzdarfen lios kulon chaticha achas v'nita kulon. That even let's say it's like 15 different meatballs, and it touches one meatball, so it makes all the meatballs tameh if those meatballs were kodesh, but not by truma. If it touches that, only that one is tameh, but nothing else. Harvi b'kodesh poisel v'shlishi b'truma. As we said before, the hierarchy that a rishon could make a sheni to a shlishi into a rvi, but only food and drink becomes a sheni l'tuma, and then truma can become a shlishi. Now that level of shlishi, that truma cannot make other truma tameh, and therefore it's considered to be poisel at the shlishi level. That's where it stops. Kodesh can still become tameh onto a revi level, which is a higher level. Even that, but truma cannot become a reveal tuma. In other words, if you have truma, which is a shlishi, and it touches other truma, it will not make that other truma into a revi. Fine. But shlishi b'truma. But truma im nitmis echad miyadav chaverta achas miyadav chaverta tahara. If let's say a person has one hand that is impure, if he touches the other hand, the din, what will the status be? So the kodesh matbel shtehen. You actually have to wash both hands. Shiyan matames chaverta. B'kodesh avlo b'truma. Both hands become tameh, and one hand can be matam the other hand by kodesh, but not by truma. Says Rashi. Im nitmas achas miyadav. But tumah d'Rabbanan. Again, we're only talking about tumah d'Rabbanan over here. Shena matama el yadayim v'lo guf. Something which tumah d'Rabbanan is matama your hands, but not your body. So in that situation, the question is, if it's only tumah d'Rabbanan, can it be matam your other hand? And therefore, by kodesh, yes. Therefore, you have to actually immerse both hands, but not by truma. A person is allowed to eat dry foods with hands which are shnios, sheni l'tuma. They could do it, but truma avlo b'kodesh. Says Rashi, shnios l'truma tikivan d'lo hukshro lo misla. So because your hands are dry, so it's not royal kabel tuma. They have to be wet in order to cause problems. So by kodesh, even if the food isn't wet, still you can make it tameh by kodesh. That's why avalo b'kodesh. As we continue to Chaf Alpha Amud Aleph, ha'oinein, someone who is an oinein shul nitma b'meisai, who has not become tameh by the dead. Mechusar kippurim, for example, a zav that immersed on the seventh day, and the sun has set, so he's able to eat truma, but he has to wait the next day in order to be able to eat kodesh. So he's called a mechusar kippurim. Shedain gomer taharaso tuli b'karbanai. So mechusar kippurim srichin tvila l'kodesh aval l'truma. So he needs to be toivel in order to eat kodesh, but not truma. Says Rashi, l'ach shehebi karbano, that even after, it doesn't mean before. The process is you have to go to the mikvah in order and then you have to have Erev Shemesh, and therefore that's why it says in the beginning of Masechtas Brachos, Kohanim b'shasha kohanim nechal lechol b'trumasan. They're able to eat truma that seventh night, but because they're mechusar kippurim, they have to bring a carbon, and then only afterwards they're able to eat kodesh. The question is, do they have to go to the mikvah again? So on this, when it comes to kodesh, you have to, says Rashi, l'achar shevi karbano. After he brings a carbon, imrotzel echol kodesh gemar b'farsh taima, which is interesting. After you brought your carbon, you still have to go to the mikveh again, but not to eat truma because you're already able to eat truma the night before. Okay. Lengthy Mishnah. We're going to end up discussing a lot of this Mishnah in the upcoming daf, and we'll have to stop there. Let's see, question 3. We saw this already. Let's say it one more time. Elo beis milas b'kodesh. So one is kli b'toich kli, and the other one is whether you have to untie and dry the vessel. That's only by kodesh, but not by truma. It's not necessary. TA 10. Be'er maha machlokasim eser milos shanu b'chaymer b'kodesh o yud alf milos. So this is actually going to be, I think Rashi talks about this here. But I'm gonna maybe save that until tomorrow's daf. Yeah, that's gonna really be more in tomorrow's daf, so we'll stop there on that. TB 9. Matam de'ein matbil kli b'toch kli b'kodesh. So at least we saw one of the answers, which is because of chatzitza. That's TB 9. So I'll put this by the number 3, TB 9. But we're gonna see is actually a second reason as well, but that will not be until tomorrow's daf. So we'll have to finish up that question then. Let's complete with Rabbi Gibber's test. My taima in matbilin kli b'toch kli l'kodesh. So again, there's 2 answers. We'll just see one of them now. The kli inside presses against the outer kli and will make a chatzitza for the inner. Adkan.